Welcome to AstroEnergy with Astrologer Angel Shelley Overton. Hello and welcome to the April 18th, 2017 edition of AstroEnergy Astrology. My name is Shelley Overton. I'm an astrologer in Orlando, Florida, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. And we have a wonderful guest on the show, and I just tried to get a hold of him offline, and I didn't hear him, and I'm going to try again here. It'll have to be live. I apologize. But first off, I'm going to give you a little bit more information about what's going on in the sky. It's going to be a pretty big week here. And so I just wanted to go over that real quick. Actually, I take it back. I'm going to check in just to see if we can get him first. So, Leo, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Hi. I'm so happy that that's you. I apologize. I tried to get I couldn't hear you at all, so I don't know what was going on with that. But if you can just hang on one second while I tell everyone about the astrology, and we'll get right back to you, okay?
No problem at all.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for being here. I'll be right back to you. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. I tell you, this is crazy for me today. It has been a pretty stressful week with the Mercury retrograde, and I don't know if you've been having it, but it's like the universe says, okay, you want to do this? We'll give everything to you all at once, and then we'll make it difficult for anything to come about and have everything go in alignment. So that, and now I'm looking at my chart, and the every glyph on my chart really, it's just like the cherry on the icing of the cake. Every glyph is actually a letter. So it's not showing the proper font for this. So, and there's nothing like doing your show. And I know Leo has a producer and I don't have a producer. So I'm doing everything live. And yeah, it's kind of all coming to a head at one point where nothing is going as it should. So I don't know how I know how to set up the font, but I can't seem to find it here in the list of fonts. So I'm not going to be able to do that today. But I just want to let you know real quick. I'm going to let that go. We have an upcoming Pluto retrograde in 2 days, which probably isn't exactly help either. And then Mercury enters Aries on the 20th, Thursday the 20th at 1:37 p.m. Eastern, which would be 6:37 p.m. for you, Leo. And so that means that the energy is going to be shifting around authority, around what has been hidden. It will be coming out. We'll start to see it. And I do have a full show next week about Pluto retrograde. But like I said, honestly, everything's kind of coming together in my world right now very stressfully. So I guess I should also say you're lucky I got on today because there's so many glitches I've been dealing with between my computer and my phone. So I'm just going to put that chart aside and not worry about it. So we have N degrees of Mercury in Pisces, which is also finishing up the first time because Mercury is retrograde. As Mercury goes back into Aries, we're going to see, hold on. Yeah, Mercury into Aries, but Mercury is retrograde. You know what? I think the bottom line is I should not be doing anything technical right now because my brain is just not going to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring on our lovely guest. And Leo is someone who I met through a friend, a wonderful friend in California. And he is an amazing medium and psychic. He lives in England. He has a practice in England, and he is clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and he has clairgustance, which if you're not familiar with, is the ability to taste things. And I have that same ability that I taste them without actually tasting them. So you pick it up on your tongue. And then also I don't know that I can pronounce this.
It's clarifacrience.
Thank you, clarifacrience. So you're aware of
It
smells.
sounds a bit like hairspray, doesn't it? Claro,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh, my goodness. That's crazy. I just there's no way I'm going to get to say this word. But yes, welcome to the show. It's so good that you were able to join me. We had a Mercury retrograde glitch last week. I had agreed to have you on, and then I totally spaced out that I had done that. So you're on this week. I apologize again.
No, it's wonderful. It's really, really nice to be here. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. So I'm going to start out having you tell me your story because I'm really fascinated to know how you came to understand. Well, obviously, if you have all these different clairs, you're going to probably be aware, that things are going on, and it's a lot of times that sets you apart from others, and you may either feel like everyone has this, or nobody has it, and you're the only one. At what point did you realize that you had all these wonderful gifts?
Well, I don't really like the word ghost. It's got a kind of, spooky kind of feel to it. So I would say spirit, but I actually saw my first ghost when I was 2.
Wow.
And I was between my mum and my dad, and it was a part of Greater London called Manor Park. And we were walking beside a cemetery, and this was in the evening. And I realised there was somebody behind us, so I turned round, and out of where the cemetery was, there was a cemetery wall, but then the pavement, so the cemetery must have been slightly bigger. And through the pavement, I saw this gentleman kind of float through horizontally, upend and stand on his feet. Now, that didn't bother me.
Oh, my goodness.
The only thing... Yeah.
Strong man.
The only thing that seemed a bit strange was he was wearing a top hat and tails and dressed in Victorian clothing. And obviously I didn't know it was Victorian clothing at the time. So I just thought, this is a strange man. So I was looking, and my dad said to me, what you're looking at? So I said, there's a funny man behind us. And we all turned back again, and we couldn't see him. And so he started walking again, and I looked over my shoulder, and I could see him again. So this happened a few times. Apart from that incident where my parents obviously couldn't see him, as more and more incidents went on, I just took it as normal that everybody could see these things, but it was just one of those things people didn't talk about. So I just took it as quite natural. I then got to an age, obviously, where I realised that people were either being shielded by it and not really as aware. But I didn't actually think it was strange. I thought it was a phase everyone went through. Everyone knew it was there. And then there was a point when they didn't see it. And, that might happen to me. The gift was taken away from me in primary school when I was about 10. And the reason it was taken away was because it's bad enough starting to go through puberty without and being sensitive in that way, without being extra sensitive and getting all this emotion from spirit. So it tailed off for a short time till I got through puberty, and then it just kicked back in. So for me, it's something I've seen real or been aware of my whole life. And as you know, I'm 60 now, so I've had 58 years of connection with spirit. So to me, it's always been normal. Everyone's psychic to a degree. Now, we can, of course, close it off and absolutely deny it, which is what skeptics tend to do. But we've all got a gift. So anyone can develop that. Whether they can develop it enough to become a medium is something else. But we've all got that gift. It's instinct. It's instinct.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that, and I often wonder if there was a time when I was younger that I cut off from this. And I think it isn't necessarily that I cut off from abilities to really. I think what you do is much more pronounced. Like you actually see spirit. And I really intuit a lot and expanding in my life the older I get and the more I look at it. But as a younger person, as a child, I think I was very in touch with my center, my compass. And then as I grew up, my environment, my family kind of acted or brainwashed me, or however you want to put it, into not paying attention to my inner voice and my inner compass, which I think would have expanded a lot of that type of thing in my life, but getting much more into, say, perfectionism and the material world. And as I got older, it's very difficult, I think, being a child who's sensitive and intuitive in a world that's very pragmatic and left brain, because it's like you cannot acknowledge that you have that, or you're called a crybaby or overly sensitive and all that. And it's really not how you are. But I think we are coming into a time where that's getting more and more prominent, and people are having to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a very general rule, and I don't like to generalize, but if we take the age of 6, before the age of 6, we're still very much connected to spirit. This is a bit like a dream world up until then, but there does come a point when we need to be grounded, more connected to Earth. And so around 6, that tends to go off. So that is absolutely common. For some people like myself, there is a continuous connection. That is fairly rare. But what happens with a lot of mediums or psychics or people that are intuitive like yourself, sometime after it starts to kick in again. And what most people, we put it under the heading of supernatural, but actually it's just natural, because if you go back a few thousand years, we needed to know instinctively, because we didn't carry too much knowledge around in our heads. We could learn, of course, but if we were living out in a forest, we got some knowledge from other people, but we instinctively needed to know at some point what plants were good to eat, what wasn't. We needed to sense whether there was danger, maybe from an animal that we couldn't see or smell. And so we've always had that instinct. Modern living, to a great degree, has blunted that an awful lot. But you're right again in that as the world is moving on, believe it or not, we are all becoming more spiritual. So there's a reversing of that effect. And this is why we get what's called indigo children and diamond children, and now they're star seeds. So it's just an acknowledgement that we are. And there was a big help with that from 2012, where there was a huge shift in vibration. And that was actuated by spirit, because to be honest with you, spirit are quite frustrated. In the last 3,500 years, we haven't really advanced at all. If we don't like another country, we'll just go ahead and bomb it. If we don't like something, we'll go and create a war.
Right.
And it's very, very backward thinking. So what spirit have done is accentuated that shift in vibration in 2012. An interesting thing is,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Was that around December 21st, 2012? Was that demarcation? I know that was a big date for a shift with the Mayan calendar stuff, but I'm wondering, okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And then, of course, the Mayan calendar only went so far, and what the skeptics did, basically, it was like the millennium bug, midnight 2000, planes are going to fall out the sky. Yeah. So the skeptics kind of leapt on that bandwagon and said, psychics have said that 2012 the world's going to come to an end. Obviously, that's complete rubbish. But what it was really was it was a signalling of the end of the world as we knew it because of that change in vibration and people literally awakening. I was working in a friend's shop and I had several people come in, and people have asked this same question since, and this was just after 2012, and they said, look, I don't believe in all this rubbish, but I'm seeing things now, I'm hearing things, I'm sensing things that, I'm getting premonitions, and it is an effect of that expansion that's been there. So there's a very real acknowledgement. Another sign of this, and this has been happening for years, of course, is that as people acknowledge this more, we get to talk about it more. And so people are not afraid of saying, hey, I had this strange dream and then it came true. Years ago, if you go back far enough, we would have been burnt as witches or, would have been locked up in an insane asylum,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, if I go back sort of 20 years or so, there was no way that I could tell my doctor that I'm a medium because they'd just ring for the guys in white coats and that's it, But now, even if people don't believe in it, you feel that you can say that. Yes, you might be ridiculed, but there's a whole different atmosphere here. So it's a big step forward.
Yeah, so I assume that you found that more currently with the people that you deal with, that they're more open to their own mediumistic or psychic tendencies. Is that true?
Absolutely. Again, people will come to me and they'll say, look, I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things, and that's a sign that your development as a medium or a psychic has begun. And I do teach, and I've been teaching on and off for about 25 years. And I was very privileged to even though it's a natural gift, you still need to be trained because you may have the gift, but if you haven't got common sense, you can make a lot of mistakes. If you're not a natural public speaker, that needs training. And so everyone should and generally does go to development classes. And I was very lucky. I went to the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain. And just like other institutions in England, they were open at that time about 100 years. So this was the mid-80s. So it's in, I can never add up when I work. So it's 100, 120. We're looking about 137 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
That it started up. And I was very privileged to go. And I trained for 8 years with an international medium in our circle. And it was a wonderful thing.
That's amazing. So was the 80s then like a jumping off point for you? Did you have another regular, quote unquote, real world job? Or were you always doing more of the spiritual mediumistic endeavors as a career?
I became professional in 2005. And there's a story between each of those. In 2005, I was quite ill. I was the marriage was bad, etc. But I started to develop fibromyalgia, which is very debilitating. Wow. And it's chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and it's a cross actually between ME and MS. So if any of the listeners or yourself have had an understanding of that, that's exactly what fibromyalgia is. And so I began to lose every job that I was doing, and obviously we've all got bills to pay. And it was Spirit actually saying, because I can be stubborn, saying you need to be doing this work. And of course, if I'm earning a wage somewhere else, I'm fairly happy that I can maybe do the odd reading or whatever. So they had to close that avenue of work down, and all I had left in the end was this.
Interesting.
So it's like, okay, I give up. You've made a point. Um, and the more I work, the better I am, because the same energies that run through heal. We can manifest with them. So I physically got better. When I was 40, 20 years ago, I'd had my first heart attack. Officially, I've had one.
Oh my
I
goodness.
know I've had three. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Wow.
and about 9 years ago, I had to go back for a second angiogram because there was a bit of a problem. But I think it was spirit just letting me know, actually, you're okay. And the reason that I say that is because I went back. They thought I'd been taking all the pills, and I never really did.
Hmm.
And there's still a problem with the bottom of my heart. But the specialist there said, your arteries are better than they were 8 years ago. So there's a
Wow.
self-healing to this. And I think it's
Hmm.
something wonderful that everybody could kind of appreciate, you know. And again, another strong influence in my life um, was when I began training, because I had a dream of a fantastic medium. He lives in the States now, John Brown, and I had a
Hmm.
very clear image of him. And he said, in this dream, you need to develop, you need to go and sit with Jerry March. Now,
Hmm.
it's spelled Jerry the female way, Jerrie. So I
Okay.
thought, okay, and I went down to the Spiritual Association, and God, there was a teacher called Jerry March. So I'm thinking, okay,
Wow.
and I joined up, and I did tell Jerry about that, and she knew John Brown, Jonathan Brown, and
Hmm.
he was actually there as well. So that's another instance of spirit saying, right, we're going to give you definite signs that you need to be doing this. Um,
Hmm.
so so it's a kind of one amazing story after another, and I've been very blessed with that.
Wow. So, gosh, I don't even know where to begin now. There's just so many fascinating things about what you do. So, you take readings. When you do a reading, do you just um, do you jump into it immediately? Give what you see or feel, or do you have spirit coming in before you actually meet the person? Or I mean, how would that go?
It's
I mean, what would a reading be like with you?
It's generally a mix of that. When I first started in 2005, reading on the psychic lines, I'd sit for an hour and I'd meditate and I'd get myself in the zone, and
Hmm.
then hopefully the phone would ring. But as
Hmm.
I did that more and more, working very strange hours, because with fibromyalgia, it's called chronic fatigue, but that doesn't
Hmm.
mean you sleep. It just means sleep is not restful.
Right.
So I started to oversleep, and then I think, oh my God, I woke up. It's 5 to 10. I've got 5 minutes to get dressed, get ready, and rush that through. And dead on 10 o'clock, a call would come through. So I got
Hmm.
used to opening very quickly, but it still is
Hmm.
a mix. Usually, I just connect very quickly. Um, with the person as they come on. Sometimes I still do get
Hmm.
some pre-information.
Right. I've always been curious to know because I'm not this way. I mean, how I process energy is very much like even just before the show, and you may have picked up on it. I had a number of different things going on. I've got a couple friends, kids that I have to pick up today, or different events that are kind of interjecting into my business day, and it was overwhelming to have all these different things going on. And
Mm.
so to ground and be ready for, having an event happen was almost overwhelming, honestly, right before the show. And so energy just comes through, it for me, there are different times when it peaks, like right before I
Yeah.
get out of bed, right when I'm awake. Before I get out of bed, I'll have a lot of information come my way and I'll be like very alert. And I know spirit can do that. But
Yeah.
when you do a reading, what is it actually like? I mean, do you see pictures? Do you just hear voices? Is it all part of the whole? Do you have every sense awakened and open? Or, like, what all do you feel in that reading? That fascinates me.
Okay. I'm blessed enough to have all the clairs, so that includes the five senses plus the extra ones of communication.
Mhm.
And I actually work very differently from most mediums. Now, sometimes a medium, even famous ones, will say, "I'm clairvoyant," which means
Mhm.
they hear, um, but they may only hear, or they may see something, but they talk about it in the sense of hearing. And so
Mhm.
they generally work two or three different ways. They might get pictures, they might hear things, and they, with experience and intuition, you can put all those things together with a coherent message.
Mhm.
I personally believe that clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, and clear hearing, are the most important. For the
Mhm.
simple reason, if you've got someone talking like we're talking,
Mhm.
you can't misunderstand the message. There's not too much you need to put together. It's more or less just repeating what you've got. So that's
Right.
fairly easy. However, you know the old saying of a picture paints a thousand words. You can get an
Mhm.
image, and in a second, you could get, in that split second you get that image, you could derive an
Mhm.
hour's reading from it.
Mhm.
Um, way that I work, I don't think many mediums could work because throughout a reading, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, or longer, I will get mind images
Mhm.
that I have to sort out. I'll get sounds, I'll get smells, I get tastes, I'll see proper clairvoyance, so I'll see the
Mhm.
person as physically as you could see a friend in front of you, as solid as that. And with
Mhm.
me, spirit mixed the whole thing up. So I don't know where the next piece of information is going to come from
Mhm.
and how it's going to get to me. Um,
Right.
that would confuse an awful lot of people. But for me,
Yes.
it keeps
And
me
that's what
on
I was
my
going to
toes,
ask.
keeps me sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I felt like, literally, and I must have been picking up on something. I don't know what it was. I have a friend who is very high minded. Like, she has a lot of things going on in her mind, and she can be very scattered. And I had talked to her within half an hour of the show, and there was a confusion over timing, and I got more and more, like, overwhelmed by all these times that were stacking up in my world. So I wonder if I probably tuned in really strongly to her energy, because my head was spinning. And it's something that I have not experienced to that degree before. So it was like, wow, I just experiencing having all these numbers and times. And quite honestly, I have time with people in Chicago and you in England and another friend in California. So I have not only scheduled times, but also um, translating it to Eastern time. So there's potential for a lot of disasters going on there. So how do you keep all this information that is just flooding you from making you literally crazy, from making you just go, I can't, having the boundaries? Do you
Yeah.
have, like, any kind of grounding techniques that you do?
Um, well, um, I've got used to working that way. Now, one of the important things that people need to remember is that if you're open all the time, that can be destructive, not least from the point of if you
Hmm.
imagine it as a leaking battery. And then you will get completely drained. So, one of the
Right.
first things that people learn when they start to develop is when you're working, you're working. When you're not, you're not. So you learn to switch it off. And
Hmm.
I'm sure you're familiar with the chakras, which are these spiritual power
Yes.
points on the body. And
Yes.
developing, there are the certain techniques where you learn to control them.
Hmm.
And although they, in a spiritual sense, they never close. But when you're learning to work and manipulate them, we use the phrases of closing them and opening them. And so as
Hmm.
we learn to control them and we open them, we become more sensitive. And one of the ways that a student can tell whether or not they're open is if you have your eyes open and you're closed,
Mm-hmm.
and then you close your eyes and you open. Once you open your eyes again, colours are actually brighter because
Uh-huh.
you've shifted. And it's not just a question of I'm closing my eyes, then open them, it appears brighter. It physically is brighter. And you can also close down, still with your eyes open, and there's a dimming. So it's a physical thing. So we talk about opening and closing the chakras. In actuality, they don't close. It's just our manipulation of them. And so
Right.
when we're ready to work, we open. And when we finish working, we close down. And it's a very important thing to go. Although the world is becoming more spiritual, and part of it is media, we're aware now of so many wars and this going on and that going on, which isn't a bad thing, actually. But because we're becoming more spiritual and more sensitive, especially if we don't know what's happening and how to control it, this can actually increase more violence and strained situations. And a very good way of explaining that is if you're very open and there's a guy in the next car and he's very open and he's really angry, you can pick that up. Now,
Yes.
you also reflect.
Yes, it's contagious.
Absolutely. You reflect that, and then they pick it up, and before you know it, you know, you're both screaming mad at each other for no real reason. So that's a sign that we are becoming more sensitive. And people would say, well, actually, that's no good, but it is. If we learn to control it and realise when we're picking up somebody else's emotions, then we go, oh, that's fine, I can shut down.
Right.
So there's almost a contradiction there, if you like, in we're becoming more sensitive, so people are getting more angry.
No,
and
I
that goes
completely
to politics
understand that.
as well.
Right. No, I believe that. I mean, it's interesting because I know in this current climate, people are a little confused as to what to do with how they feel. They are more trigger happy. And as an astrologer, I understand from a mechanical, energetic, way, logical, using energy, why this is happening. And if I didn't have that astrological connection and I'm Buddhist as well, so that gives me another dimension of understanding that it really, I don't know how people are coping with things. Some of them aren't coping very well, but it is an amazing time of expansion and opening. And there are a lot of hallmarks of being aware that you are starting to open up. And personally, I think when you start noticing your own feelings versus someone else, and you start noticing that when you're around certain people, you feel a certain way, and then you change your environment, you feel a better way, that's a huge marker of taking ownership of the differentiation between us. And even though we all probably as a society have felt that we are different people and we're very self-motivated and can be selfish at times, we are naturally intuitive. And it's something that I've thought a lot about recently, that when we react to people, we are pulling an energy out of their expectation, and they're projecting an expectation, and then we pick up on it intuitively and then respond as if we are a reflection or a mirror to them. So when we do that, we really are intuitive and empathic and connecting to people on a different level, and we don't necessarily recognize it day to day, but it's starting to get more obvious to people who didn't notice it before. Like, real quick example, my dad, who has always been the manager of a business and left brain, and he retired. And it's kind of like for the first time in his life, 15 years ago when he retired, he opened up to that kind of spiritual side of himself. And yet he still wants some of those boundaries of the old life. But last week he found a random parking space that he just parked in. He has a handicap sticker. He could have parked over there, but it was farther away than he wanted from where he was going. So he parked in a regular space, opened the door, looked down, and there were 25 pennies right below his door. And
Oh.
yeah, and it was amazing to me that he likened that to a connection that was unusual, when instead of just saying, boy, somebody really lost all their money, he told me that it was an event that was like an omen. That was something meant to be there. Of all the spaces, I found this one with the 25 pennies. So just the fact, I've got chills, just the fact that my dad opened up to the idea that that was something unusual is a huge shift for him. So go ahead.
Yeah, and you know that's happening more and more. You know, sometimes people ask about wars are bad, etc. And generally, absolutely. But what happens during those situations is we are given lots of choices to make, you know, whether to sacrifice our life to help someone, whether to go rescue someone, to do the right thing or not. And if you take again modern age and media, you know, before certainly the Iraq war, wars were very much this country against that country. Of course, your country, you know, God's on your side, and they're the devils, and you get all the propaganda and everything. But during the Iraq war, there was a blinding realization, because you could see normal people. They could be you and me, running through the streets, you know, being hurt, because what happens most during wars is innocents get harmed. The soldiers, they're there, they're getting paid, you know, they feel it's a job they need to do, and I don't agree with that, but it's the innocents, it's all the fallout. So what's happened, because of the media spread, when we've seen things like this, there's an immediate worldwide pouring out of love and empathy, and an awful lot of energy goes into that. So it creates empathy. So from that point of view, it does begin to bind us all together. You know, Earth is a place of testing, and there's no place like it in spirit. And so this is one of the reasons that we incarnate. This is a reason of why we are here, because of these experiences. And of course, there are some good, there are lots that are bad and lots that are good, but it gives us a chance to make those choices and get that karma from it. So, you know, with every action, you know, like terrorist action, there's an immediate outpouring. And this is something that terrorists don't realise, you know. I don't want to get too political here, but it's just a spiritual thing. Yeah, it's a spiritual thing. You know, they do this thinking, well, you know, we've gained an edge, and all they've actually gained is lots of empathy and lots of love being poured into the situation.
Wow. Well, that's a really wonderful thought, and I appreciate you telling me that, because, yeah, I think we are very voyeuristic in what we do with news and how we watch all these events. And yesterday I went to get my daughter at 2:00 and came home 20 minutes later, and there was a complete event going on right by my house, 2 blocks away. A house was burning down, and I was blocked from coming home. But thankfully, the police officer 2 blocks away let me come home, because I was still 2 blocks from where it was going on. And all these news teams came, all these people, everybody got out of their cars and go look. You know, I walked to the edge of the property because everything's going on at the property. You know, I've got 5 acres here, and I had news trucks parked on the land I'm on. So they asked me to do that. So I've got all these giant, you know, antennas coming up and reporters at my door, and it was pretty amazing. But, you know, our natural instinct is to find out what's going on and to see, hey, what is that? But, you know, we have this internal need to understand, and then we empathize. I think most people who are, you know, well, I want to say in touch, but probably not say sociopathic, are going to feel something for these people. Somebody lost their home yesterday, you know. So, but we look at the ugliness of it. But I think if we can start to find why it's happening and go the next step beyond, then that's when we really start to expand to the next level as a humanity, as a group of people on this planet. We go to the next level when we start to understand, why is this happening? Why is this in my neighborhood? Why did that particular event happen? And all these other things, so it's, I don't know. I mean, it's something that is larger than me, I'm sure, and larger than you, but thank you for putting a positive spin on it. So,
Oh, bless you.
yeah, I real quick want to tell everyone we're talking to Leo Bonomo. He is a British medium and psychic. You can find more out about him on his website, which is leo-bonomo, bonomo.com. And there's his story. There are links to all the different services he gives. And is there anything else you want to add for connecting to you?
No, that's it really. There's telephone numbers and emails on there that people can do.
And you have your own show.
Oh yes, I was nearly forgetting. I have my own show on Paramania Radio, and you were a wonderful guest. I was blown away by your astrological reading. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Thank you.
One of the things that I'm very kind of hot on is, getting proper evidence, because it's quite easy for somebody who still has a gift to say, to an 80-year-old woman, I think your mum's in spirit, and she sends lots of love. And to me, that's not proof at all. So it's something I'm very, very hot on, and it's something that I make sure my students understand. So in my readings, I don't ask for any information. I don't want any information. In a good reading, you will have all of your questions answered without you needing to ask them, because the spirit that comes knows all about you. And it's one of my favorite bugbears as well. You get mediums in a church and they go, right, I've got a guy here, first name John, surname Smith. I'm over there somewhere. To me, that's nonsense, because if your Aunt Jenna comes to me, and even if there's 300 of you in a hall, she knows who you are. And what I simply do is say, right, who are you with? Who have you come for? And she'll go, oh, it's that lady there with the yellow scarf. Fantastic. So 99% of the time I know where I'm going. There are occasions for different reasons when I don't. But I think everyone should do that. And I also... Sorry,
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to see if you wanted to take a caller. I've got a caller with their hand raised in my queue. I think a few people they're online, but they're a little shy. So if you do want a reading with Leo, just hit 1 on your keypad and we can get you on today. But is that all right with you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So let's take our first caller here, 909. Hi, 909. What's your name?
Hi, it's Angie. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, how are you? This is Leo.
Hi. Good.
Hi, Angie.
Hi, Leo.
How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Now, I don't like to work like this. This is quite strange for me. So
is it really?
Having opened my mouth and said I know exactly what I'm doing, I've got two images. Before you spoke, I got an image of a lady with chestnut-coloured hair. So it's a kind of dark brown. It's fairly straight. It's shoulder length. And when I see a person from the shoulders up, I sometimes pick up very accurately who's on the end of the phone. So I thought, right, this is who you're going to be. So if that description doesn't fit you, it would be somebody alive. But as you spoke, I then got a lady with blonde hair come forward, and she's somewhat older. So let me try and work this in a kind of reverse way. Do you have dark hair shoulder length?
That first description is exactly my hair color and length.
Right,
Yes.
okay, because
Wow.
sometimes spirit like to keep me on my toes. So before you spoke, I got that image. I've got a lady that has got blonde hair. She's got a similar hairstyle. There's a bit of a fringe. I am notoriously bad with ages, but this is a lady that wouldn't have carried much weight. I would say she would be mid-60s to mid-70s when she passed over. She doesn't have a face that naturally falls into a smile. So I'm being a little polite about that. But there are what we could call laugh lines, but there are certainly creases on her face. There is a sadness with this woman that I think was there through life, but she tells me that she passed quite quickly. She's actually written the word for me unnoticed, so I think she died alone, and it may have been a little while before she was found. So she says she was around 5'5", 5'6". So would you recognise this lady?
I do not recognize that person. No.
Not to worry. It's not always parents and friends and that come through. I'm just going to have a quick listen to what she's got to say. Right. Would you understand this lady wanting to talk about a financial issue with you?
No. Would I understand that?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you exactly what she's given me. She's counting out pennies, so I know that money's a little tight for you. She says budgeting doesn't seem to work. You need to do things in a different way. So would that make sense to you?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, because sometimes, they want to get through what's important for them rather than what's important for you. She says if you start to look at things and do things in a different way, you will find that you will have more money over at the end of the month. It's going to be a slow process, but she's taken me towards October and she's circled it for me, and she says you will be in a better position by October. You don't have to panic. She's actually said there's no need to sell. I don't think she's talking about you selling a home. I think what she's talking about is you selling things that perhaps you don't need, but really the incentive is to just get more money. Would that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, because she's saying you don't have to go that far. If you just need it for space, that's fine. But she says you're thinking of selling things, and she says it's a pity to maybe buy those things back later. So she wants to get that through to you. I know that you've rung up about a relationship issue because she's just mentioned this. Fire away. Ask any questions you want to.
As soon as you said that, I was thinking about asking you that.
Yeah. That they think in with you, so they're very aware of what you're saying, what you're doing, and how you're reacting. Which is sometimes why I give something, and the person in spirit goes, "Oh, you've got that wrong," and then you say to me,
"Oh my goodness,"
because they've got a
right
real
before
sense
you
of
asked it, I was going to ask you. Well, it has to do with my marriage. I'm in my second marriage, and things are extremely upside down. And we're very disconnected at this point.
Yeah, she says you're actually being very polite. You're toning that down. She says that you need to look after yourself. She says we don't want the same situation as what happened before. She said before it started to get very tense. It got out of control very quickly, your other marriage. She says she's being polite again, but she says there was a bit of abuse on both sides, so a lot of shouting. I don't think it was physical abuse, but certainly a lot of emotional blackmail and that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And she says it hasn't quite got to that now, but things are very tense. She says you need to think about what's good for you. As I've said that, she's written 2, and then I've seen 2 children. Generally, children for me and for spirit would be 16 or less, but 16 and up, I wouldn't count them as children. So I think these are 2 younger children that are connected with you. Would that make sense to you?
No, I have 2 grown children that I'm still very close with.
Right, I think that's why I need to explain that. Okay, and the reason that she's mentioned that is, again, she's saying you need to put yourself first. What's good for you? And then sort everything out on that basis. She's talking about your husband being not only uncomfortable with you, but uncomfortable with himself. She tells me he's very restless, he doesn't settle. That isn't because of the state of the marriage. It's kind of, that's what's helped to create that. So would that make sense as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She says, whatever it is, you're never going to get to the bottom of it. She says, not that you need to, because your decision, in a sense, is very simple. Put yourself first. What is it you want to do? Hopefully your husband's not listening to this. I've got a little tick with that, so he may be. But she says, put yourself first, and then other things will fall into place. She says you need to be a little bit ruthless because you tend to give in and give more than you need to for the sake of peace. Would that make sense too?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Everybody
so she
tells
says,
me that.
Yeah, so she says, you know something, you have to be ruthless, you have to make that demarcation line, and you have to say to him, right, I think I know what I want, what is it you want, because this needs to get sorted out. She says before too long. So again, if we go to the end of the year, she says that is an anniversary. So this feels like 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. This feels like a set period, the anniversary. Would that make sense to you?
It would be 15 from the day we met, I believe.
Okay, so she's talking about that. She feels you need to get this sorted before the end of the year. She says it's not healthy. Now, Spirit can give you that advice. You have complete free will, but she feels it's better to do it before that 15 years comes up. And she says, then you can breathe again. It's partly finance, but she says you haven't had a holiday for, she says, some time. If you've physically been away, it's really not been a rest. But you haven't had a... Yeah, and she says, you need to be taking care of yourself. I feel that your health has deteriorated slightly, but she says that is stress, and that can be taken care of. She wants to say you are not that ill. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor. This lady's not a doctor either. But would you understand really not feeling well? But it's actually the stress. Stress can cause physical manifestation. But she says physically there's nothing wrong. It's the stress. Would that make sense to you?
Yeah. Well, when I had my physical at the beginning of this year, I had all these things discovered and just strange things, cardiac things that turned out to be nothing. And I have a scheduled surgery next month for a gallbladder removal and just nuisance things. So
It is. And again, she wants to underline the fact that, the heart thing, that was stress. Stress is a strange animal. It can manifest in any organ, including the skin. So, we can get eczema and all kinds of stuff. But she says that's what it is. That needs to be addressed. She doesn't want you worrying. She's actually making quite light about the gallbladder, saying, something, we don't really need it. So get that sorted. It's like the appendix. We don't really know what it does, but when it goes wrong...
That's been my attitude. It's like a dental appointment, is the way I've been looking at it. But can she enlighten me on my children? I'm, even though they're grown and out of the house and they're, mid-20s, one's almost 30, I still feel very close to them and I worry about them, and they're my whole heart now at this point in my life. Does she see anything, or can you tell me anything that she sees with my boy and my girl?
Yeah. She says, look, they will understand, they will support you. It's not a question of them taking sides, because I think they're quite close to your husband as well. Would that make sense to you?
Just recently have they begun to really appreciate him on a personality type.
Yeah, so this is why she's brought that up. So it's not a question of them picking sides, but They will support you. They will actually be quite relieved when this is sorted out, because this lady says, again, this has gone on long enough. And even though they're not physically at home, they still feel what's going on. She says your children are very polite. They don't want to intervene. They've been very restrained, but it doesn't mean they like what's going on. And that's as much for your husband as for yourself. And I think this is why she's saying, think about it, do the right thing. I was actually married for 33 years. I knew my wife for 36. It was love at first sight. It was one of those things. But I gradually got to the point of view where I realised it's best for the divorce. And in a sense, it released all that energy that was there, all that tenseness that was there. So I actually get on with my children really well now, whereas before anything was a kind of a no-go. And the reason this lady's bringing this up for me, and consequently for you, is to say, they'll be fine with it. They'll be fine with both of you individually, and they'll be happy that it's settled.
Right. Okay, great. Is there anything else that's important for me to focus on?
We're getting close to that time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got a couple of people that were waiting if Leo can take one more call. Sure. But yeah, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate the call. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Leo.
For an astrology.
Bless you. Take care.
Thanks. Are you up for another call real quick before the end, or do you think that's too tight?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, that's fine.
We'll try and limit it a little bit. So, Hi, 916. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. What's your name? I'm sorry, what?
Hello? Cherie?
Hi. Cherie. Hi, Cherie. We've got Leo here today, so I'm going to let you ask him a question if you've got a question before we wrap up the show.
Okay,
Hi,
great.
Cherie. Fire away.
I don't know, just kind of looking to find direction. I've gone through an experience where I've experienced, which I don't use that term lightly, and then I'm now moving away, and I've just had a lot of changes going on and a lot of chaos, and just maybe some direction, guidance.
Absolutely. I've got another lady here. She says, you're very smiley. Your face is very smiley. You've got a beautiful smile. She says that what's actually happening is that you're beginning to develop your vibration is changing. This is why there are changes there. She wants you to follow that path that you're inclined to take, which is the spiritual one. Lots of people, when they talk about a soulmate, they always envisage a love angle, that kind of thing. It can be somebody that has a real soul connection that can be in your life for another reason, and that is to change the direction of your life as well. She says similar to what's happened. So this gentleman that you felt was a soulmate has changed the direction of your life. Would that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she says sometimes that's the purpose. For me, I believe soulmates are actually very rare. Soul recognition, where you know them either from spirit when you've made an agreement before you were both born, or from another life, is much more common. And that gentleman was there to kind of redirect your path. But you will find that happiness that you seek, but you need to get yourself spiritually sorted out. Develop, you'll find lots of things that fall into place. She says, friends, you will make new friends again. So you're also losing friends. Would that make sense too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And it's a vibrational thing. It's not you've offended anyone. Your vibration's different to theirs. You kind of leave them behind. So that's all that's happening. So seek that spiritual path. You'll find it will take a little while for things fall into place.
Okay.
All right,
well, thank
Sherry?
you.
I know. I think you might have contacted me on Facebook. So if you also want to call back another time to get an astrology reading, that's fine too. So thanks for the call.
Okay, for sure.
Okay.
All right, of
take
course.
care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Leo, thank you so much for being here. If anybody wants to get a hold of Leo, he is Leo Bonomo, and his website is leo-bonomo.com. He is around, during the week? Is that your usual schedule?
All the time. Yeah.
All the
I
time.
work very odd hours.
Yeah, and you also are on Paramania Radio, which is PARAMANIA.com, correct? Or
Yep.
ParamaniaRadio.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're on Thursday on that. What day do you have that show?
Wednesday, so it'll be tomorrow
Wednesday.
from American time or EST is what is it? Oh God, it's 5 till
5
7.
hours earlier. Yeah, okay.
5 hours earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's at 5 to 7 and it's 10 till 12 my time.
Okay, 5 to 7 in the evening, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being a lovely guest and being patient and answering all my questions. And I really hope to talk to you again soon and keep in touch and, have a wonderful week.
I will do, and it'd be lovely to have you on my show again. We'll organise something, and
wonderful.
It's been an honour. Bless you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, bye. Take care of yourself, please.
God bless. I will.
Okay,
You too. God bless.
Okay, thank you. Bye, Leo.
Bye.
And that's the show for this week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We're going to talk about Pluto retrograde next week. If you want to get a hold of me for a reading, it's astrologerangel.com. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for stopping by AstroEnergy this week. If you would like to get a hold of Shelley Overton, you can get her at astrologerangel.com, on Facebook at AstroEnergy or Astrologer Angel. The music was provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com with additional music by Ironwood Rain. Check them out on the net at ironwoodrain.com. To subscribe, please click the picture of Shelley on the right or the red button below.